I'm going to go over some of the Sundance movies that I'm seeing this month and tell you what I'm most excited about. So here's the Sundance page. Here's my overall list. These two first are in person, and then there are a number that I couldn't get tickets for, didn't have time to see, and I had to just prioritize. It's What's Inside and I Saw the TV Glow are first. This one looks like it's right up my alley. And the midnight category, they're kind of like the darker, sometimes it's satire, sometimes it's like straight up horror. At other times, there's something else going on that kind of puts it on the fringe. And this one looks like a great story. I often will just read the log line. Logline is just a one-sentence explanation of the movie. Pre-wedding party descends into an existential nightmare when an estranged friend shows up with a mysterious suitcase. Right away, that sounds fantastic to me. Second up, I Saw the TV Glow. Logline is, teenager Owen is just trying to make it through his life in the suburbs when his classmate introduces him to a late-night TV show, a vision of a supernatural world beneath their own. In the pale glow of the television, Owen's view of reality begins to crack. That also sounds phenomenal to me. Those are the only two I'm seeing in person. All the online showings are available Thursday early through Sunday late. I have 12 of them plus shorts that I plan to watch. I got access to As We Speak for my students, and so we're screening this at my school. This is a documentary about the weaponization of rap lyrics. Law enforcement using artistic creation as evidence in criminal cases. It seems like a cool, important story, maybe upsetting, maybe sad, but important. Eternal You, I am seeing, that's the second one I have got lined up for students, which is another documentary. Startups using AI avatars to allow relatives to talk to dead loved ones. And the consequences of turning the dream of immortality into a product. It's been on my mind, and it takes a question that I have been thinking about and puts it in movie terms, which is great. Here are some movies that I'm seeing online through a 10-ticket package. We'll start at the bottom. It's a documentary of the story of Lollapalooza. The idea of it being related to the band Jane's Addiction, which is one of my wife and my old favorites. So I'm pretty excited to just see a documentary. Artists like Jane's Addiction, Nine Inch Nails, Pearl Jam, Sonic Youth. These are all bands that I loved when I was younger. We're going to be watching Dìdi. 2008, during the last month of summer before high school begins, an impressionable 13-year-old Taiwanese American boy learns what his family can't teach him: how to skate, how to flirt, and how to love your mom. My four family members, all of us, really wanted to see this, and we have this whole ranking system where we make choices together to try to make sure everybody gets to see stuff they want, even if I'm kind of the main impetus for this. Exhibiting Forgiveness was another one everybody thought looked good. A black artist on the path to success is derailed by an unexpected from his estranged father, a recovering addict desperate to reconcile. They learn that forgetting might be a greater challenge than forgiving. Being in recovery, I'm interested in this story in particular. Ponyboi sounds kind of wild. Unfolding over the course of a Valentine's Day in New Jersey, a young intersex sex worker must run from the mob after a drug deal goes sideways, forcing him to confront his past. And that sounds great. Some of these films, like Ponyboi in particular, like make me think, is that going to get picked up for wide distribution? I doubt it. I don't know if we're in a place in 2024 where a satire or a comedy that involves an intersex sex worker could show up in a big theater. I might be wrong, but maybe it'll get picked up by like a Netflix or an HBO or something so that folks can stream it at home. If you didn't know, this festival is all about independent filmmakers bringing their not yet purchased for distribution, usually, films to try to make a sale. Suncoast, a teenager who, while caring for her brother along with her audacious mother, strikes up an unlikely friendship with an eccentric activist who is presenting one of the most landmark medical cases of all time, inspired by a semi-autobiographical story. That sounded interesting. And again, these movies, most of them, I say most of them because it's possible that somewhere along the line, somebody had added production money to the pool, and thus maybe have some distribution rights already, but for the most part, these films don't have distribution settled yet, and they're here to get in front of an audience, even though it's a bizarre, weirdly upper class audience that is in no way representative of the movie-going public. It's still a public audience. They pretend like they're slumming it, by the way, when they're like they come down to Salt Lake City where I am going to screenings, and you can tell the way that they're talking about they wanted to get in front of like real people, etc. Not realizing that there are no quote unquote real people in that theater. Talk to quote unquote real people, that is the average person, and they don't know what Sundance is. And that is not a dig on them. It's rather a dig on the upper class folks who think that they're slumming it when they come to Salt Lake City. An investigation into abuse and missing children at an Indian residential school ignites a reckoning with the nearby Sugarcane Reserve. This is a documentary and is something that is going to be upsetting and important We tend to watch those movies at Sundance, upsetting and important. Next is Thelma, which is something I could see going big. When 93-year-old Thelma Post gets duped by a phone scammer pretending to be her grandson, she sets out on a treacherous quest across the city to reclaim what was taken and is based on a real life story, which seems hilarious and awesome. That is the kind of thing that does have wide appeal for one reason or another. I've seen dozens and dozens of these movies over the years. Since 2009, I've been going to these things, and usually I see at least 10 or more films a year, sometimes more than 20. Here's another one that my wife and I were a fan of. The kids, not so much. I don't know why. Four young girls prepare for a special daddy daughter dance with their incarcerated fathers as part of a unique fatherhood program in a DC jail. That speaks volumes to me. I read a lot about incarceration, and I'm into, like, weirdly enough, sociological studies and journalism that have sociological bent. This looks like that kind of a thing. Realm of Satan. My son and I were curious about this. An experimental portrait depicting Satanists, and I wonder what kind of Satanists, in both the everyday and extraordinary as they fight to preserve their lifestyle, magic, mystery, and misanthropy. um, that sounds interesting. Handling the Undead. Another one that could see distribution, but horror on the whole, especially dubbed horror, doesn't typically get picked up. On a hot summer day in Oslo, the newly dead awaken. Three families faced with loss try to figure out what this resurrection means, as if their loved ones were, and if their loved ones are really back, based on the book by Jean Elvide Lindquist. And this is the author of Let the Right One In, I think. And so I'm curious about this. I actually haven't seen Let the Right One In yet. Maybe I ought to see that before I go to this. But I really always want to read the books that these Sundance movies are based on. This is the kind of thing that I could see maybe an Americanization being created. I don't see dubbed films getting big time in the United States. So maybe you can see it in an independent theater, but we have to watch for news on the distribution rights being sold or not being sold. I'll try to keep you up to date because I do watch all that stuff. The next thing I'm excited about is the Midnight Shorts program. And yeah, you can go to the website and read individually. I'll let you know if I see anything that I thought was really awesome. These are not the sorts of things that get picked up for distribution because they're short films, and I guess we don't really have a mechanism for that. They don't get picked up. Animated short film program, and then short program 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and documentary shorts film programs. I hear sometimes that books are either windows or mirrors, that they give you a window to look out of to see somebody else's perspective, and a mirror to see something about yourself. And a lot of these films for me are more like windows where I get to see something about a different perspective. And that's important to me. This is really going to be a great festival. If I'm not like they don't pay me, even though that would be cool, Sundance, if you're listening, you can pay me. But I go every year to these things. I watch them online. P.S. Accessibility is super important and making this more accessible to more people. So this year they took a major step backwards by limiting which movies are viewable online. And I wish they would go back. Even people who are local, sometimes, we have anxiety issues. We can't necessarily afford to take the whole family out. It's just more cost effective and comfortable to watch these things at home. Now, I realize there are other people who think that that's an atrocity against film, that you should never watch a movie at home. It should always be in front of a big screen with a giant audience. I'm not one of those people. And no, not everybody is the same. So, hey, accessibility. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back.